Pet portraits, they are their own little genre of painting. In this video, I'm going to discuss the 3 biggest mistakes that I see in most pet portraits. Hi, welcome to Paint Coach. I'm Chris Fornatero, here to help simplify oil painting so you can get better faster. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about pet portraits. Not so much I'm not going to really walk you through painting a pet portrait, because the actual painting process is very similar to painting a portrait of a person or a landscape or anything else really. So what I'm going to focus on are the 3 biggest mistakes that I see most pet portrait artists make. All right, the photograph. This is where I feel 85% of the work is done. Getting a good photo reference of your pet is extremely important, because there are a lot of mistakes people make with getting a photo of their pet to paint. The first mistake people make a lot of the time is the angle at which they shoot their pet, because most of the time a pet is sitting on the ground and you're standing up. So you'll see a lot of people will do a pet portrait of them looking down at their pet looking up, and it just doesn't make a very good portrait. The background is just the ground, so it's just gonna be grass or carpet. If you do want to put a background in, it's not gonna really work. It's you don't really ever get like a sense of the body of the pet. If you want the body, it's just the head and it's just looking up, it's looking right into the camera, and it just doesn't really make a good quality portrait. The second mistake people make with the photograph is the lighting. I find it very helpful to have a very distinct light source to distinguish, the shadows and the highlights. When it's just kind of washed out or blown out of just all, light, or if it's in shadow and all dark, it makes it difficult to paint because you can't distinguish the features and the angles and the shapes within the pet's face. So make sure you have a good light source, and I do recommend it being a natural light source. It tends to work well with pet portraits because they are animals, and just having the natural light source just goes hand in hand. Also, I find it best when the animal is not looking directly at the camera. When it's kind of looking away, it works better. Also, try and get your pet in a very natural, normal state, whether it's resting or if you want an action shot, if it's moving, those always work really well. I always find it weird when the pet is extremely posed and looking straight at the camera, and it just obviously looks posed. It just doesn't really capture the life of the pet, and you're gonna have this painting for, hopefully forever, and you want something that's going to kind of capture that pet's personality, and you can get creative with it, and you want to represent what that pet was like day to day, not some artificial posed version of themselves for this painting. So a lot of times it can be difficult to paint a pet with an actual background, actual location behind it, and not have the background overpower the portrait. So I do recommend keeping it very simple. And you can just have like a blank background, like a certain just solid color, or kind of like a fade of colors. But even that gets a little tricky sometimes. It ends up looking a little too high school photo-ish, like your pet was painted in front of like a backdrop of a cheap photographer. And sometimes the best way is to just leave the raw canvas behind. So the second thing is the composition. And for some reason, a lot of people like to paint their pet as big as they possibly can on the canvas. And this just doesn't work. It feels like it's trying to burst out the edge of the frame. On the contrary, a lot of people will paint it too small, and it seems like they paint it too small, and then they put a background in to fill the space, and all of a sudden the background kind of overpowers the portrait itself. This is a painting of a pet, but it's still a painting, and you still need to have good elements of design and composition. So while you're planning it out, make sure to step back from the canvas and see how everything's working as a whole, just like you would any other painting, that you're directing the eye to the certain areas of the pet that you want. You know, if you want to mainly focus on the face, like I'm going to in this portrait, I'm not going to put so much detail into the body or the paws. I'm going to keep the main focus and detail in the face. All right, last is how you paint the pet. And it seems like a lot of pet portraits feel the need to paint every single hair, literally, on the pet. I find that to be kind of tacky and doesn't ever really work out that well. Because once you do that, you have to kind of do that for everything. And if your dog's sitting on grass and they end up painting every single blade of grass, and it just doesn't look that good. I tend to enjoy pet portraits where they suggest the hair with their brushwork, the direction of their brush strokes, the size of their brush stroke. It just seems to work a lot better. If you have whiskers, you can do quick whiskers. I feel like those are okay because they're so distinct that it works, and you can put like a few stray hairs here or there, but when you focus in on the individual hair, it just doesn't, because when you look at a pet, your eye might see every hair, but your mind doesn't. A little trick to help indicate fluff on a pet is, you know, on the edges where the edge of the pet meets the background, instead of going in there and drawing individual little hairs, you see that I kind of faded it a little bit. I didn't make the edge of the pet, you know, a harsh line. I blended that edge so it has the feeling of fur, and it indicates, you know, the fluff instead of actually drawing every individual hair. So it's a kind of a good tip to do in certain areas to give your animal that hairy, fluffy look. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I am Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.